Donald Trump has appointed Kristi Noem as Secretary to the Department of Homeland Security, and I need you to understand that you are not possibly scared enough. I'm uniquely qualified to tell you about this person, and I have a long list of videos about what has been happening in the state of South Dakota. A key element of fascism is to create problems that don't exist in order to gain power. This is going to divide the population, but when you solve this problem, do you understand what I'm saying? You will do so by all means necessary. I've told you before that South Dakota is the first place that far right-leaning groups like the Heritage Foundation tried their policies so that they could spread it throughout the country. They understood that the best way to do this was to pit Americans against immigrants. This was a problem for states like North Dakota and South Dakota that had power-hungry, fascist, far right-leaning governors. They wanted a shot at the national stage. What they deliberately did was decide to coin the phrase that all states are border states. This was a way to import the border issue to the Midwest, where immigration really isn't a problem. To further spread hate for the immigrants in this country, as well as perpetuate the idea that Donald Trump didn't, in fact, lose the 2020 election, the Heritage Foundation sent out fake surveys to everybody in the state of South Dakota, asking them if they believed that illegal immigrants should be voting in elections. And at the end of this survey, it talks about how there have been over 1,500 cases of voter fraud. Of course, this happened over a 20-year period of time. It directs these people to a website where they can see all of the voter fraud cases. Of course, the letter insinuates that it's illegal immigrants ruining our elections. Immigrants are not the only ones that need to be scared. It is important to understand that she has stolen millions of dollars from both the state of South Dakota as well as the federal government to ensure that she got this position. One of the ways she did this is she depleted our emergency funding to send our National Guard to the border to show how loyal she would be to Trump and to stand firm in the fact that immigrants were in fact the problem in this country. When a natural disaster hit the state of South Dakota, this meant that there was no National Guard here to help, but it also meant we didn't have emergency funding to comply with FEMA. FEMA, of course, is an agency within the Department of Homeland Security. Before this flood took place, she came to my hometown and said that the flood wasn't going to be that big of a deal. This is because she refused to listen to the EPA and NOAA. In a closed meeting, the government decided that they would redirect the floodwaters to an area that was not in a floodplain and not going to flood. This took out an entire community, and they never saw it coming. We had no National Guard to help them. We had no FEMA to help them. One of the areas that was protected by redirecting the water to this neighborhood and taking it out is new plots of land that Kristi Noem grifted infrastructure money from the Biden administration to build workforce housing that isn't even built yet. There was no emergency messaging system to let these people know what was coming. They literally had to run for their lives. This is in part because Kristi Noem doesn't believe in the IPAWS system because it comes with federal regulation. This means that it can be any of you in a natural disaster. She also has refused to listen to our state DHS coordinator who warned her we had a serious cybersecurity threat. The American Rescue Plan offered millions of dollars to the state of South Dakota to correct this cybersecurity problem. And both Republicans, Democrats, and the DHS coordinator begged her to take this grant. Her and Florida were the only states to reject this CISA grant through FEMA. CISA also manages our elections. This election, the Friday before, one of the biggest voting days in the state, the entire system went down. Hundreds and hundreds of people were turned away from the polls. Others were given provisional ballots that they don't know if they will be counted or not. Amidst all the chaos with this flood, we did not have a 911 system in the state of South Dakota twice this summer. She does not believe in the EPA, the NOAA, or any government agency. Within our own state, she has deliberately appointed people to every department, and they're simply there to destroy it. Just Google Matt Itoff. She doesn't believe it's the government's role to send out emergency messaging. She does not understand how FEMA works, nor does she support the program whatsoever. She does not believe in the guidelines set forth by FEMA or the National Flood Insurance Program. She only cares about land development and making herself rich and gaining more power. Every single duty of the Department of Homeland Security she will destroy, and Americans will be less safe. She is there for one reason and one reason alone, and that is to remove the most amount of immigrants from this country as possible. The only thing I can do or recommend we do to push back is make sure that everybody writes their lawmakers to try to make sure, if it's possible, that this appointment does not go through. I and many other people in South Dakota have come on this app and documented the things that are going on here. Please make yourself very familiar with them, because now it's all of our problem.